Welcome back to the Money Wisdom Podcast, powered by Johnson Bernetti. I'm Jake Dozer, and this is Nick Colantuono, certified financial planners, and two of the advisors on the team here in Connecticut and Massachusetts, respectively. We're looking forward to our question that we have today. It's an interesting question and not one that is dissimilar to some things that we hear often. The question is this: I've been living with my fiance for 6 years, and it's unlikely that we'll ever actually get legally married. We're both divorced, and no matter how we look at the numbers, it doesn't make financial sense for us to get married. But we're only 2 years from retirement, and we do want to be on the same page in terms of our retirement income. Do you have any suggestions for handling a situation like this? I think that we do have some suggestions, but I'll give you the floor, Nick. Nick, what are the first things that we need to be thinking here in this circumstance where we've got people living together, not married, financially? Where do we start?
Yeah, I mean, we see it all the time, Jake, and it's always important just to take a step back. I always use the analogy that as financial planners, we go up in our little helicopter and, we go to 10,000 feet and we're looking at everything. It doesn't matter if, person A and person B are married or not, but if they are living under the same household and reliant on one another for their success in their financial planning worlds, let's talk about things together. Right? You don't have to be married for us to put a plan in place, assuming there's a life between the two of you. So I always say, go up in the helicopter, go to 10,000 feet, look at everything on a cross-disciplinary basis, not just from the investments, not just the insurance, not just the income or the expenses, but let's look at everything and put a plan. We can plan for a joint life, even if it doesn't mean you're like legally married. So I understand, right? Believe me, there's a lot of people who have had bad experiences in marriages and they're out of it and they say, oh, I don't, I just, marriage isn't for me, but I love this person. I want to spend the rest of my life with this person. Well, okay. Let's put a plan in place for that. And of course, as you're aware of, there are, some benefits to being married from a tax standpoint, from the income, from Social Security, pensions, like, survivor benefits, things along those lines. But look, we're not here telling people that they have to get married if, philosophically they don't want to do that. But if they do want a life together, we're saying, well, let's put a plan in place together and see what the road ahead looks like for both of you.
That's spot on. Respectfully, what I would say to this person, if they're sitting across the table from me, I would say, what do you mean that the numbers don't work with you married together? And the reason I say that respectfully is that the numbers almost always work better if you're married. Number one, married people pay less taxes than two people single. The only instance that I could imagine where you would pay more taxes by being married is if one spouse, there's two scenarios I could think of off the top of my head. Number one spouse has a massive amount of student loan debt. And that by getting married, they eliminate their ability to do some write-offs on their tax returns. That would be one scenario where getting married wouldn't be of a tax benefit. Another scenario is perhaps one spouse is a widow or widower, or one significant other rather, has a widow or widower. And so they're getting veteran benefits from their deceased spouse. That could be another scenario. Beyond that, though, in almost all instances, married people pay less taxes than two people individually when you add them together. Number two, when you're inheriting money, assuming one of them passes away, a spouse gets to take over a retirement account as opposed to having to have forced required withdrawals like most beneficiaries. Number three, you can, as Nick mentioned, elect a pension survivor as opposed to when you don't have a spouse. The only pension survivor option is what's called a period certain, where you get it for 10, 15, 20 years. But if you live outside of that 10, 15, or 20 years, there's no longer any benefit to the survivor. So very rarely would it not work out mathematically. I think probably what they more mean, this is what I've heard, is, hey, I make a lot more money than my significant other or vice versa. And so us splitting everything wouldn't be equitable. Well, in that scenario, what we commonly recommend people consider is, hey, look, if you make as a household, let's do easy math, $300,000 a year, and one person brings in $200,000 and one person brings in $100,000. Well, here's what you do. $200,000 a year income earner, since they make 2/3 of the total household income, they cover 2/3 of the household expenses. That's a way to equitably do it where it doesn't have to be 50-50, but you're thinking about equal contribution, equal sacrifice, right? Where it doesn't have to be 50%, 50%. But either way, I think it kind of boils down to, let's determine if this is a philosophical issue or if this is an actual dollars issue. My guess is it's probably not a dollars issue. It's probably a philosophical issue. Once those things are done, then to Nick's point, we need to make sure that your investment plans are complementary to one another. We need to make sure that significant other A and B are doing things that are not blind of the other person's assets. I just met with somebody last week that sounds a lot like this situation, where they said to me, and this is, I don't know if they said that, but this is what I distilled. It was effectively, I need to make sure that if this person is no longer in my life, that I'm going to be okay without them. But it doesn't mean that we don't rely on each other financially. Well, in that scenario, what we do is, to Nick's point, is we plan together, but we still plan separately to the extent that we know we could get out if we had to financially. I think that's people's concerns, is I don't want to be so reliant on that person I cannot live without them financially. And that's valid. I see that. And so to that end, we need to be planning with both things in mind. What is realistic and what is happening presently, which is us living together. But also, if it doesn't work out, am I going to be okay? And I think that that's the heart of the question. Nick, how further would you elaborate on that? Where do we go from there?
Well, whenever it comes down to retirement income, right? This individual mentions we're only 2 years away from retirement. We want to be on the same page. 2 years is a lot of time to be able to, connect and ultimately get on the same page. And obviously every couple handles finances differently. I just think of the way my wife and I do it. Ironically enough, my wife and I are actually both financial planners. So we are very much aligned as far as like the need to do financial planning, but the way we do it is completely different. So, it takes two to tango, as they say. She's like the yin to my yang, if you will. I mean, she's balancing out what I'm doing. I'm balancing out what she's doing. Either way, you ask her what I'm doing is crazy. You ask me what she's doing is crazy. So it's like, it's good that we have each other because we kind of balance out each other's crazy. So for a situation like this, 2 years away from retirement, that's a long time to get on the same page, if you will. There's a lot of decisions that will have to be made over that 2-year period when you enter this new phase of life, right? 2 years away from retirement means you're not yet collecting Social Security in all likelihood. It means you're not yet on Medicare and all, like, who knows? It means you haven't yet made that pension decision. So, let's approach things from, plan A, you stay unmarried, but continue this joint life, or plan B, you get married and this is what it then looks like. So it's, this is where I use the analogy, right? Go up in the helicopter, look at everything from 10,000 feet. Don't just look at it as this is the situation today. Look at it as, this is the situation today. If we don't make any changes, and this is what it could potentially look like over the long run if we do. So again, they said we're only 2 years away from retirement, as if it's like right there. Again, time flies when you're having fun. I know that, but it's plenty of time to get on the same page.
Are you ready to retire with confidence? Join us for our retirement planning workshop and learn strategies to maximize Social Security, healthcare, income planning, taxation, and more. Text WORKSHOP to 800-757-0436 to reserve your spot, or click the link in this week's show for more details on how to register.
That's right. Getting on the same page with who's going to be contributing what to our lifestyle, who's saving what. Are my investments complementing yours and vice versa? Are we aligned with things as basic as, if I pass away, are you my beneficiary? Am I yours? If not, do we have debt together? Do you need life insurance to cover that? Do I need life insurance? Who do we want, if we both have kids, to get assets? All of these things, just these little day-to-day things, need to be addressed. But again, don't forget that. Go up in the helicopter, look at it big picture. That's so true. Again, thank you for tuning in to the Money Wisdom Podcast powered by Johnson Brunetti. We will see you next time. Be sure, if this was helpful, to give it a like. Share it, perhaps, if somebody else you know would benefit. And subscribe. We'll see you next time.
Investment advisory services offered through JB Capital LLC. Insurance products offered through JN Financial LLC.